and viewing information can be found on the district's website and our YouTube channel. The meeting is now called to order. It is October 4th, 2023. The time is 7:07 p.m. Our mission is to provide a safe and caring climate and culture in which we engage, inspire, educate, prepare, and empower all learners in partnership with their surrounding community to be successful in today's and tomorrow's society. Zach, can you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and then can you call roll?
The following board members are present at the District Administration Office: Scott Andresen,
Here.
Natalie Copeland,
Here.
Al Dahlgren,
Here.
Zach Dorholt is here, Shannon Haas,
Here.
Monica Sugaris-Schwartz, Heather Weems.
Here.
The following cabinet members and staff are present at the District Administration Office: Superintendent Dr. Lori Putnam, Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education Dr. Jason Harris, Assistant Superintendent of PK5 Education Nikki Hansen, Assistant Superintendent of E12 Education Services Dr. Mike Rivard, Executive Director of Community Education Adam Holm, Executive Director of Operations Gary Ganji, Executive Director of Research, Enrollment, and Assessments Donna Roper, Director of Community Engagement and Communications, Tammy DeLand. Media Technicians, Paul Novak and Gordy Scott. The custodian on site tonight is Evan Voss.
Thank you. Then next, I'm looking for a motion to approve the Board of Education meeting and work session agenda.
So move.
Second.
Chair.
Monica?
I'd like to make an amendment to the agenda, if that's possible. I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to add an item after the approval of the consent agenda for having the superintendent to explain any changes in the policies that have been done around LGBTQ people or LGBTQ policies and rainbows.
Okay.
Second.
So, but I'm wondering if, can we, can you take off your,
No, will you accept them?
we,
I accept the amendment.
okay. Natalie? Do? Okay. And normally we're going to call vote, but can I just open it up for discussion? Can I get a clarification? Are you just asking for the superintendent to make a statement, correct? Not opening it up for board discussion?
It is an agenda item. Madam Chair, you have the power to manage the agenda item as you wish.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. So we have a motion and a second to approve the Board of Education meeting and work session agenda with adding a superintendent statement after we approve the consent agenda. Zach, can you please call vote?
Can. Heather Weems,
Yes.
Scott Andresen,
Yes.
Natalie Copeland,
Yes.
Al Dahlgren,
Yes.
Zach Dorholt is yes, Shannon Haas,
Yes.
Monica Sugaris-Schwartz.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then we have the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of non-controversial items that the board adopts routinely without debate. Any single member may remove an item from the consent agenda by requesting removal at the time the consent agenda is moved for adoption. On tonight's consent agenda, item A, approval of personnel staff changes. Item B, approval of monthly financial report for August 2023. Item C, approval of monthly treasurer's report for August 2023. Item D, board policy 424, license status as revised. Item E, Board Policy 709, Student Transportation Safety Policy as revised. And item F, Student Handbook Attendance Procedure Update. At this time, does any board member wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? No? Then I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
So move.
Move. Second.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion by Monica, a second by Scott. Zach, can you call vote?
Yes, Al Dahlgren,
Yes.
Natalie Copeland.
Yes.
Scott Andresen,
Yes.
Heather Weems, Monica Sugaris-Schwartz,
Yes.
Shannon Haas.
Yes.
Zach Dorholt is yes.
Okay, Thank you. Then we're moving on to the additional agenda item is the superintendent's statement.
Thank you, Board Chair Haas, members of the board, and thank you to our students and our community who came out to speak this evening. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to share the perspective of the administration and just really deeply appreciative of this community's ability to listen and be listened to. So we have, as you know, as a school community, been working through issues related to the boundaries of employee speech and the impact of those boundaries on belonging, inclusion, and dignity for our students, staff, and families. We have been in deep conversations with staff members, families, students, union representatives, and our board members to address the concerns that have arisen from the conversations. And unfortunately, when issues of this depth and complexity arise, misinformation and misunderstanding can and does happen. I want to start by being very clear. In this school district, we strive to hold every member of our community, our students, our staff, and our families with care and compassion, and to create learning environments that are inclusive to all. And this is a longstanding commitment and one we will not shy away from. So I want to share a little bit about what the truth is and the accuracy of the changes that we've made, and then address some of the questions that have come to me and to this team so we can be really clear. So you'll hear some general information and then some direct responses to the misinformation that is out there. I think to begin with, though, it is critical, right, to recognize and acknowledge that we all operate inside a legal framework as a public school system. And that legal framework has been established and upheld repeatedly by our courts. And our decision-making is grounded in this framework and designed to create common ground and safe space for a diverse group of learners, represented by a multitude of cultures, races, religions, identities, and perspectives. To that end, and inside that framework, we must keep our classrooms and learning spaces content neutral and academically focused. And as employees, we must center student learning in all that we do. It is my and our belief that we will create communities of belonging, inclusion, and dignity through the ways in which we listen and partner with each other when challenges to our own individual perspectives arise. For staff who wish to clearly articulate a commitment to supporting students as they too navigate issues of belonging and inclusion, we are offering opportunities for them to learn more about allyship to the LGBTQIA students and our students of color. During those learning opportunities, staff will have the opportunity to first get a foundational knowledge in the students and the communities that they want to support. And they will also learn how to respond to students needing specific supports. We heard mental health and suicide referenced multiple times. So our staff who undertake these 3-hour trainings will learn not only the foundational knowledge, but also how do we respond and support students who are in crisis? What are the resources that are available? And through that, they're able to earn safe space stickers. So the posters, stickers, they can go on their computers. And then not only for the LGBTQIA community, but also for our students of color. So they can also take a class to earn a racial or ethnicity safe space sticker. And the really exciting thing, I think, is that these stickers or the posters are designed by our very own students. So our GSAs are designing the stickers that our staff can earn and post. And then our equity groups are designing the stickers that our staff can post. Now I'd like to address some of the questions we've received that have let us know that there's some misinformation floating about. And I hope the characteristics of my leadership is that I will always be honest and authentic and vulnerable. And while we may not always agree, I will always give you the facts as I understand them. And I'm open to hearing, as is the rest of this team up here, we're open to hearing other perspectives. So the questions I've gotten, are you asking people, staff, to remove their safe space stickers? No, absolutely not. Those are earned through demonstration of knowledge and indicate an employee is trained in responding and supporting our LGBTQIA students. We have been very clear that those stickers we've never asked anybody to take those down. In fact, as I described, we're creating more opportunities for our staff to earn those and demonstrate their allyship and their ability to respond to student needs. Question, are you asking staff to remove their flags? Yes, we are. We have never allowed staff to hang flags. A few years back, and this is based on court cases, right? A few years back, we were addressing flags related to Blue Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, and MAGA. Now we are addressing flags related to LGBTQIA identity. The prohibition on specific identity or political advocacy by our employees is longstanding, and I understand that right now, this feels and is very personal to those who feel directly impacted by these conversations. I understand that, and we understand that. But this is a recurring issue, one that has impacted many different groups of people over the years, and our response has been consistent and uniform, and our response is designed to create a common ground that is that's inclusive to all. Question, are you banning rainbows? No, we are not. So we are not going around saying that's a rainbow colored flag, or that's a rainbow. I've been very clear, we've been very clear with all members of this community, unless there is an explicit message layered on top of that, our rainbow is just a rainbow. And some of this we heard tonight. Is this decision being made because of opposition by a specific group in this community? Absolutely not. As I've shared before, the decisions that we've made around advocating for specific identities or political groups, Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, and MAGA, LGBTQ, that has been a long-standing decision, expectation in this district that as employees, again, this is what the legal framework is, we do not have the right to post those in our classrooms. The safe space stickers are different because that is an earned indication of someone's ability to respond to a student's need. Question, are you still supporting student GSAs? Absolutely. We are committed to providing a space for this group of students and any others who wish to form a club. We have an established process for creating new and supporting existing student groups. Question, are you asking or requesting students to remove LGBTQIA rainbows, symbols, flags? No, absolutely not. Provided there is not a disruption to the learning environment, which is the case for all dress, and does not violate our handbook or code of conduct, we are very clear about hate speech. Students have the right to wear anything they wish. Student speech is handled very differently than public employee free speech. So there's very, very different policies and procedures that govern those two different things. So I do encourage anybody here or in the listening audience who has questions or concerns to stay and meet with the assistant superintendents if you want further clarification or dialogue. You can also reach out to your principal or to any of the ASUPs or me at a different time. We're more than glad to listen. We are here. Our board is here to listen deeply and support our students, staff, and families. My only ask is this. While we may not always agree all of the time, please find out the facts before you make assumptions, draw conclusions, or take action. It's only through open and honest communication that will make our schools the safe, inclusive spaces that we want them to be.
Thank you. What room will you be in? 112. So should they go out this way or? Okay. We'll give you just a minute. Okay, then we're moving on to our discussion and action items. We have 2 action items tonight. First is approval of tentative agreements. And Tracy is not here tonight, so Gary Ganji, Executive Director of Operations, will be presenting our custodian contract.
Good evening, Chair Haas, Dr. Putnam, and members of the Board of Education. Tonight, we bring forward a tentative agreement with the custodial unit. The custodial group initially voted down the tentative agreement that was reached on August 10th. We were able to negotiate a slight revision in financial terms. That option was presented for a vote yesterday and passed by the membership. Tonight, I am here to give you a summary of that settlement. The custodial unit represents 89.5 FTEs and approximately 91 employees. This unit does not have steps like many of our other units, but it does have classifications of employees. On the summary sheet, you'll see the starting rates for each of those classes. I won't go through each class, but class 1 would be our custodians and warehouse staff, and class 7 would be our master electrician class. All employees in class 1 through 4 will receive a 4.75 increase in hourly wages, plus a 2% compression adjustment for all employees that with a start date between January 1 of 13 and December 31 of 22. As we've discussed before, the compression adjustments have to do with the wage study. All employees in classes 5 through 7 will receive a 4.75% increase in hourly wages and or the new starting rates, whichever is greater. There'll be longevity rate increases, and again, we're working to align the longevity steps and rates across all units. There's an increase in the district insurance contribution to single plans of which now be $615 per month. Increase in wellness pay percentage to 80%. One additional holiday, which will be the Juneteenth holiday. Certification pay for all members, and these have to do with engineer license, from the chief's license of 40 cents per hour to the special license of 10 cents per hour, and then the licenses in between. Added reimbursement for an engineer academy cost towards boiler license certification. As you know, in this employee job market, we're doing everything we can to attract employees. And in this unit, it's our grow your own to advance staff to different levels of that engineer certification. And then this also includes a reclassification of one position, which is our head grounds. In year 2, the starting rates you will see for the different classes, and a 3.25% increase in hourly wages for all employees. Total 2-year cost is 10.07%, which is right in line with the other 7 non-licensed settlements that we've approved. On the cost sheet on the back, you'll see a overage of $13,832, but as Tracy has communicated to you that, or with you, that falls within the $750,000 set aside for the board for bargaining. We feel that this represents a fair settlement for the group and maintains pay equity across all groups.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Go ahead.
Gary, it says increase in district, increase wellness pay percentage to 80% of eligible hours. What was it?
60%.
60%?
Yes.
Okay.
And
And
go ahead.
is that calculated as a cost, or do we call it cost neutral?
That's costed in the increase.
Okay. And what was the head grounds position classified as before 5?
Let me take a look here. I believe that was class 3. It was one step above the groundskeeper, so yeah, that would be class 3.
I know you don't do these, but it would be helpful if that information was provided,
Sure.
because unless we were there negotiating, we don't see that. So, thank you.
Scott, do you have questions? No? Okay, so this is an action item, looking for a motion to approve the custodian contract for the 2023 to 2025 year.
So move. Second.
Have a motion by Scott, a second by Heather. Any further discussion? Zach, can you call vote?
So Shannon Haas,
Yes.
Monica Shigeru,
Yes.
Heather Weems,
Yes.
Scott Andresen,
Yes.
Natalie Copeland,
Yes.
Al Dahlgren,
Yes.
Zach Dorhold is yes.
Thanks for stepping in and doing that. Okay, next we have the summary evaluation of the superintendent presented by the Board Personnel and Negotiations Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I yield to Natalie Copeland to read the statement from our committee.
That's right, I'm reading this. Okay, let me find it. Sorry about that. I'm usually so prepared. Okay. All right. The final copy. Here it is. All right. So this is our superintendent evaluation public report for the 22-23 school year evaluation. And it reads as follows. The St. Cloud Area School Board is pleased to have Dr. Lori Putnam as our superintendent. When we hired Dr. Putnam as our new superintendent in 2022, we were certain that she was the right person for the job. Dr. Putnam was already part of our district and had deep knowledge of our struggles and opportunities. She also had been in our district through COVID, one of the toughest times for schools in the nation that changed the field of education as a whole. Now, over a year into her tenure, we have reaffirmed our decision to hire Dr. Putnam was a correct decision, as evidenced by her full school year's work across our district. We are proud of the accomplishments the district has made in the 22-23 school year under her direction. The board developed a 3-year cycle for our superintendent evaluation that pairs with our 3-year superintendent contract. For this first year of the contract, the board's evaluative focus has been the superintendent's demonstrated accomplishments and community relations. Now, in the second year of the contract, there will be a broader summative evaluation, and subsequently, the third year will be focused on strategic alignment and contract renewal. Dr. Putnam's goals for the 22-23 school year centered around our strategic plan. She focused on ensuring a safe, positive, and engaged climate and culture, as well as developing the capacity of herself, members of her cabinet, and other district leadership. Dr. Putnam has been very systematic in her approach. She shared with us her action steps and baseline measurements at the start of last school year and followed up this summer with outcomes showing that she most assuredly met the goals she set out to accomplish. One major accomplishment was ensuring that all district schools and departments have a SIP, which is a continuous improvement plan, so everyone knows what success looks like and the steps they can take to ensure success as a team. Other accomplishments include advocating to state leaders in support of our board legislative platform regarding the special education cross-subsidy in our district and seeing a positive change occur this legislative session, as well as continuing our work on school safety, particularly around secure entrances. After the September 20th board meeting, board members met with Superintendent Putnam to discuss her performance for the last school year and reviewed her goals for the 23-24 school year. Her asset-based approach to education led her to champion efforts to gather student, staff, and community voices and seek to understand where our strengths and challenges lie across the district as she looks forward into the new school year. Monica Segura-Schwartz, the 742 board member and personnel committee chair, said about Dr. Putnam, "I am very proud to have Superintendent Putnam leading our district. I appreciate her soft touch while remaining firm and confident. I am personally appreciative of having a superintendent bring her experience as a woman in leadership and as a mother of children in our district. Lastly, the board looks forward to continuing working with Superintendent Putnam to prepare, engage, educate, empower, and inspire all learners to be successful in today's and tomorrow's society. Hashtag 742Inspire.
Okay, are we going around, or this is an action item?
I would
Do you want-
move that we approve the superintendent's evaluation for
Second.
2023.
Second.
I think Natalie beat you. So on the record, we have a motion by Al, a second by Natalie. Any further discussion? Zach, can you call a vote?
Al Dahlgren,
Yes.
Zach Dorholt is a yes. Shannon Haas,
Yes.
Monica Segura Sports,
Yes.
Heather Weems,
Yes.
Scott Andresen,
Yes.
Natalie Copeland.
Yes.
Okay, and now we want to open it up? Yes? Okay, so the contract is approved. The evaluation and the summary is approved. So I know we met at our closed meeting and talked to Lori, but giving an opportunity to make that public, would anybody like to share some brief words of support?
I can go. I'll say a lot of the same things I said in the closed meeting. I truly appreciate having you here. You followed, I think, a very good superintendent. You learned from a very good superintendent, and now you're leading yourself. You're taking the district to new heights, and I think you focus on areas. I think you focus on very important areas, but I think that you also bring into your little world some of the things that were maybe missed before, and have managed to get some focus on that. But what I see in Lori Putnam is someone who is a leader, yet you don't lead for the self-aggrandization. You lead because you really believe in what you're doing. And it's not about Lori, it's about the kids. And it is a very, very important way to look at things when you're going to lead a school district. And so I do appreciate that. And you.
You know, as is evidenced by a lot of things that happen on a daily basis in your job, leading well doesn't mean that there's no controversy or there's no conflicts. But I guess what I want to say here and to the public is there's a reason why our students and community members feel like they can come and say their piece and say it very, they're not holding back, because that's the culture that you've built over this last year, is one where student voice and staff voice really is heard. It doesn't mean you always agree with them, like you said multiple times, but that's really who you are, is valuing input and then making the decision that's best for our district mission. So thanks for doing that.
I obviously am new and don't have experience with another superintendent in the role. But as I said last week, I've been very impressed, Lori, with your ability to take on a new role and to move into that leadership role. When you sit in an assistant or an associate seat, you still get to point fingers at somebody else. Ultimately, in your position now, you are the decision maker on all things, even those that you don't know everything about. And I have been very impressed with your ability to and willingness to empower those around you, to strengthen your cabinet and those advisors to you so that they can make decisions and let you be your best self. And I think that's critical as a leader, that you have the up and down conversation and discussion that enables them to be honest and true while you're also being honest and true. The authenticity and selflessness of your leadership makes a huge difference. And as Al shared, it enables people to feel comfortable and to bring to the table the most important things. You have repeatedly shown your ability to make difficult decisions while still responding with compassion and love. And ultimately, I believe that that's what school should be, and that our support of students and of staff is about making that comfort happen and helping them all to be their best. So thank you.
Thank you. I thought you were going in order. That's where I was going. Lori, I want to thank you for being there. I got the privilege to have included my words in the statement, public statement. That's a truly my belief. I had been here before when Willie was here, and Willie also had children in the district. Now, I said that you put the same charisma. Willie was great with children. Wanted to recognize that, but I wanted to be very explicit about having a mother being the person that is making those decisions, and caring about everybody else, and every other children as your own child, and making this place the good place for them. I truly believe that, and I will not agree with what has been said already. I agree with Heather a lot in the terms of how you have done with putting trust in others and consultation and asking over and over and asking again and again. And I don't know how you get enough time to ask so many people. But I have seen that, and I am very pleased with that. And I will say I recognize that asking, hearing, listening, and using that advice is not easy. The more that you ask, the more confused one gets, and that is sometimes it's easier just to say, okay, just gonna do it myself, my own way. But you have taken the time to discern to all those inputs and figure out how you can really be inclusive of what you're hearing. And for that, thank you.
Scott, Zach, doesn't matter.
You're doing good. I was impressed how you have been able to, you keep reaching out to people, to your administration, to your staff, your principals. You've really been searching for input, and that's been really good. I can see that kind of the school psychologist background you have. I believe your first cabinet meeting was going to be a group therapy. Get all the problems out, and hey, you've worked it. I think the cabinet seems to be working better than it was. And I also appreciate your reach out to the community. You've done a lot of things like cop shop and so on. It's been good. Thank you.
So is it a crazy, incredible, difficult job to be superintendent of any school district at this time in our country? And you are the right person for the right job at the right time, and handling things like the constant barrage of misinformation. We're seeing it. That's just more than anybody should have to do in itself. But you approach this job with interest and energy and ideas. And I'm excited to see those come to fruition, and I think they will with you and the amazing staff we have in this district.
I just want to say thank you very much, and I agree with everything said here tonight. I remember when we were making the transition, and it was in Willie's last months, and you said something about, you know, it was great that you had an opportunity to learn under him, but you're going to make it your own, and you're not going to do things exactly the way he did. And I couldn't imagine how does that look like, because he was all that I knew, and I see that. I mean, I knew it was going to be great, but I didn't know what that would look like, and I'm just very impressed and thankful and appreciative. So thank you. We're very lucky.
I just want to say thank you to each of you for your kind words. It really warms, it really goes a long way during hard times to know that that support exists, and even during good times too. But I count myself incredibly lucky. I think that St. Cloud, the greater St. Cloud community, is an underdog. I think that this community is more compassionate and tougher and more willing to do hard things than a lot of communities, right? I think we're ready. We're willing to have the hard conversations to make our communities better. And I feel like I am able to help do that work because of the support of this board. Right? And so I believe firmly that our public schools are integral to this community. And I believe that through your support and that of our cabinet, many of whom are sitting over there, our assistant superintendents in the other room, and this board, that we're able to be a leader in this community in those hard conversations. And we aren't all agreeing here all of the time, but we are modeling civic engagement. We are modeling compassionate and kind and authentic dialogue, and I could not imagine a better place to be. I think, you know, I appreciate that recognition that this can be a hard job, and the words that Zach shared, and I fully feel like that we are right for each other. Right, that that we have the same goals, the same values, the same vision for our district, and that is really rare. When we look around the state, right, that is really rare. And so every day I am grateful for this board, the way you challenge me and you support me, and to our leaders both here in the district and the buildings, and then our staff who are in front of kids side by side with students all day long. I am grateful for this entire community. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Then we are moving on to the Board of Education Standing Committee reports, which I believe we have two. First, Board Development Policy and Governance Committee Chair Scott Andreasen.
Didn't get my cheat sheet, so I'm going to have to do it from memory. We did look at a couple of policies last time we met. One is Board Policy 424, License as Revised, and Board Policy 709, Student Transportation Safety Policy as Revised. And both of those came before you in the consent agenda and were passed. In the work session, we're going to be looking at a proposed new board policy 425, staff development and mentoring. This will be our first reading, and you'll have lots of chance to do input. Yeah, that's not on here. Okay. Yeah, we looked at the cannabis one too. Yeah, we're trying to figure out what's legal and what's not. So we're looking to our human resources lawyer.
Excellent. Thank you. And then Personnel Negotiations Committee Chair Monica Segura Schwartz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We met September 26th. we had present at the meeting as board members Monica Segura Shorts, me, and Natalie Copeland, and Superintendent Putman and Tracy Bo. We discussed the administration provided an update on the status of negotiations with employee groups. The committee also reviewed and finalized the 3-year cycle for the superintendent evaluation process, followed by feedback from our board members. So thank you everybody that provided feedback about that. We work on that. And also we reviewed the public report for the 2022-2023 superintendent evaluation, which was shared already by Natalie earlier today. And that was the summary of our meeting. I'm done.
Thanks. And then we have Board Finance and Audit Committee Chair Al Dahlgren.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with Finance and Audit Committee, but it does have to do with the resolution that we passed a few weeks ago. Submitted to the School Boards Association, and I received a call this week from the School Boards Association. And in that resolution that we passed, we had several asks, several different things that we were asking for, and they said it can't all be included in one resolution. It needs to be included in multiple resolutions. And so what I've done is I gave this to Lori to take a look at. They talked to me yesterday, so I haven't had a lot of time to work on this, but I broke it into 5 different resolutions. The first one would be urging the legislature to strengthen the current method of holding charter schools accountable for their performance relative to student outcomes and charter commitments. The second one urges the legislature to allow compensatory funding to follow students who leave a charter school after the October 1st deadline and re-enroll in the public school system. The third one urges the legislature to provide equitable facilities funding to public school districts through the state aid and/or increasing the lease levy authority to $1,314 per student. The fourth one urges the legislature to support us in asking the legislature to change the opt-in date for consideration of public school transportation for a new charter school from July 1st to May 1st. And the fifth one, the School Boards Association would not accept a resolution on full funding for transportation because they already have a resolution asking for full funding. So it was a duplicate of a resolution that they already have in place. And so they wanted that one to be removed. And so that was why that one was only for the opt-in date for transportation. So anyway, I took the asks that we had in there and just broke it into individual resolutions. And I submitted that to Lori. She's going to take a look at them, and we're going to determine if we think that's the best way to do it. And then I'll get that back to the School Boards Association.
Okay, thank you once again. And then we have future agenda items. October board meeting topics will include Madison Elementary School presentation, incremental weather protocols, tentative agreements, and some policy readings. At this time, does any board member want to suggest a future agenda item? Okay, so it is 7:58 p.m. and and I'm looking for a motion to adjourn our board meeting for the
So
night.
move.
Okay, I have a motion by Monica, a second by Scott. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, well, don't go anywhere. So now it's 7:50. I don't know what time I said before. It's dark out and I'm all out of whack there. So it's 7:50 p.m. and we are opening up our Board of Education work session. So first up, we have Central Minnesota Virtual Academy Status Update. Joining us, Ryan Cox, Director of Innovation and Instructional Technology. We were so excited, we wanted to start last meeting without you, Ryan, but we waited and here you are. Glad to have you.
I was actually watching the board meeting, and I wanted to talk through my monitor at home, but lo and behold, that doesn't work, so. Um,
I apologize, my papers got mixed up, but the fifth resolution was setting a saturation limit within a school district, at which point they would not approve any more charter schools. That was the fifth. I just,
That one got pushed through, the only one was blocked was our transportation funding issue.
yes,
Okay.
yep.
Yeah.
No, they wanted the other ones, but I was reading and I was like, it got out of order.
Okay.
But there was a fifth one and it
Yeah.
had to do with the saturation. So
All right, thank you.
Just so you know, I didn't forget that one.
Okay, thanks. All right, excited for this.
I appreciate the opportunity as always. Before we get started, just a couple quick thank yous. I just want to just publicly thank all of the amazing folks in our district that have been part of this over the last couple of years especially. While I am able to be here to visit with you, there are so many people that have played a part in pulling this new opportunity for our students together. And I just want to publicly thank them. Publicly also, I want to just acknowledge two groups, especially our school counselors and our Central Minnesota Virtual Academy teachers. These two amazing groups have risen above and beyond and trying to understand not just how to think differently about education, but also to take care of the day-to-day logistics that are necessary to create a program like this. So I just want to mention those two groups especially. It's exciting to be here. While this conversation feels like it started 2 years ago, as Gary may recall, this conversation actually started in 2011, to be honest. And Gary and I were, at the time I was technology integrationist and Gary was director of technology, and we were hearing some inklings around the state of some school districts that were exploring this possibility, 12 years ago of online learning. And Gary and I were in his office and we kind of sat back and just kind of did like, what would this look like? And so we kind of talked about it then and throughout the what ifs and then, as things happen, it kind of gets shelved and time goes on. And so to see this resurface again is exciting. So that's where we'll start. So a couple things, or the key areas I'll be covering tonight is taking a look at exploring the instructional framework that is part of our Central Minnesota Virtual Academy, briefly explaining some of the professional learning that our teachers have already been able to undertake to feel prepared, explore some of the course offerings that our current model offers for our students, breakdown of student enrollment for both the high school program and the middle school program. As you know, it's a 6-12 opportunity, and then finally some basic next steps. It's kind of, because we've been talking about this for so long, it's something to remind ourselves that we are literally 1 month in. And so we've taken great strides, but that step 5, that next steps, is important because we feel this is an opportunity that it goes a lot further than just the first month. So a couple key pieces. First of all, the instructional framework. So it's important to talk about how instruction looks differently. To just take a typical brick and mortar in-person model and to put it on a computer isn't really online learning in of itself. And a lot of research has been done about this. There's been state and national organizations that have looked at online learning opportunities and how to support those pieces. And so what I want to talk about briefly is just asynchronous learning, the idea of blended self-paced learning, and then just kind of the day-to-day structures that our students and our teachers work through. So first of all, I want to define asynchronous learning. It's a term you've probably heard often, especially in the last 3 years, but it's worth just kind of revisiting to make sure that we all have a common understanding. Asynchronous learning is when we take learning and we allow it to happen in an anytime, anywhere environment. That's different than synchronous learning, where you are in real time, real space learning. It can be virtual. You can do synchronous learning via a device, via online opportunities, and that's where the students log in and the teachers log in at the same time. The learning happens at a very structured pace. With asynchronous learning, we felt the importance of the freedom and flexibility around learning. And we talked to a lot of districts about this as well in our planning over the last, say, about 10, 11 months in the hardcore planning part. And so what our students are allowed to do is they're able to log in and access learning at the time and place which kind of impacts or supports them the most. And you're going to hear a student voice toward the end, one of our students who talks about having a part-time job and being post-secondary at St. Cloud State University, and one of our online students. And that wouldn't be possible if we didn't have this opportunity. So you'll hear that toward the end. And I just had a little bit of data just to show on the next slide about asynchronous learning throughout the state. So the second part then is our instructional model is based on blended self-paced learning. What that means is students, the teachers record a lesson, and we try to keep it short. Research shows that 6 minutes is kind of the sweet spot for a video lesson. So this isn't where the kids sit and watch a video for 20, 30, 40 minutes in most cases. There might be cases where that might be a longer one, might be necessary. But we encourage our teachers to keep it short, to chunk things in a way that the students can digest in small bites. We also can use the benchmark, a minute per grade. It's kind of just a healthy, just kind of a general benchmark. So if you're teaching 10th graders, think about 10 minutes. You're teaching 6th graders, think about 6 minutes. But and the benefit of that for our students is they are able to take that learning and self-pace it in a way that best meets their needs. So again, as we talked about when we approved this program a little under a year ago now, was the idea being that a student can take a video and they can be watching a math lesson. And think back to when you were in math and you were sitting in your class and you were learning algebra or geometry or whatever it might be, and you were stuck. You had a couple choices, right? One choice is raise my hand, put myself out there in front of my classmates and hope that someone else did the same questions, and the teacher stops and reviews that lesson again with them one more time. Or like what most of us probably did, and me included, was you sat quietly and you hoped that you understood it or that the teacher reviewed it, and in some cases you maybe left that class feeling there were gaps, right? So with the online option we do with blended learning, the students can actually pause that video. They can rewind it back and think, okay, teacher A was talking about this concept of math. I don't quite get it. I need to review that one more time. And so I can rewind it and go, okay, listen one more time. You know what? I got to get some help. So our students are able to log into office hours with our teachers and or message our teachers and say, I'm still stuck on this math concept. Can we meet during office hours and can I review with you again? Sure, no problem. Okay? So that's the blended, that's the self-paced part that we see within Central Minnesota Virtual Academy. And within that structure, to support it, our teachers are posting about one week's worth of resources for their students to review. So in a typical case, you'll see this is actually a screenshot from one of our language arts classes where they will post their weekly structure for the class. So in this case, the students on Monday, September 25th, were taking their second round of vocab notes, this time on prefixes. Sorry, I couldn't read that, prefixes. The 26th, view the results of last week's, and so on and so forth. So if a student wakes up and they are just ready to go with language arts, it's kind of in the groove, and they can do 2 or 3 days and spend the whole morning doing that, great. Okay? So that's the instructional framework. We get a lot of questions over the last year about the asynchronous versus synchronous piece, and I wanted to share this briefly. There's a Minnesota organization of online schools that schools can join, and we've joined. I signed us up for this so that we can work with other schools and learn and kind of pick other people's brains. And what I did was I just asked a question in just a brief Google form. Tell me about your instructional framework, because I was curious. And actually, just over half of the respondents, 28 online programs responded that they're using the same model that we are, the mostly or all asynchronous models. So there is some support throughout the state in that model and that freedom process. Okay, what does the course look like online? This is a screenshot of Brenda Sires' math class. She's a teacher at Tech High School, and she's teaching for us right now 2 online math classes, Algebra 2 and Geometry. And this is her algebra class. And so what you'll see here, this is a screenshot of Schoology. We use Schoology as our learning platform. We've been using Schoology now for about 9 years, I believe. And so what the teachers can do is they will post all the resources they need for online learning within this one space. So you'll see things like get to know the teacher. You'll see the syllabus, ways to contact, upper right corner. Sorry, I'm a walker when I talk and when I taught, so this is really hard for me to sit and when I get up and walk. So if I'm reaching out the screen, I apologize. But you'll see office hours where the students know ahead of time when they can reach out via Google Meet and checking with this particular teacher around math, or just say hi, or just check in socially, whatever it might be. And so that's the resources that our teachers provide for the supports. And then you'll see down the bottom, each folder is structured by week. And so the kids know they can go into September 4th through the 8th, the 8th to the 15th, and so on and so forth. The other unintended benefit with this whole thing is, imagine if it is now middle of October and you're learning a skill that built upon something you learned in the second week of September. What can our kids do? They can roll back and they can go back to that lesson back in the middle of September and watch that short review again and think, oh, that's right, okay, so we're here, it's built upon this, I didn't quite get it then, now I'm seeing how this works. So think about that with language arts, with social studies, with science, with math, with making music, with Phi Ed, with health. Those are some of the courses the kids can take. Okay? This is a short video. This is Carrie Kopp, who I believe just won an award from the University of Minnesota. Am I saying that correctly? So did not mean for that. That was just a dumb luck chance. I didn't plan that one. But this is give you an example of what one of our science teachers, I gotta adjust my volume here because he's a little bit quieter. And just what it sounds like. I won't play the whole thing, just maybe 10, 20 seconds to get a sense of what our kids are able to listen to and review.
Again, so we're going to talk about measuring with graduated cylinder. So in our slideshow of the measurement practice, the third one is a graduated cylinder. And so we're going to get this set up. We'll go ahead and put Mr. Kopp in here. And you're going to measure with this the same way that you did with the ruler, only now the scale is up and down. So in this first case, they actually give you a magnified view of what it looks like so you can see a little bit closer. Notice that the volume is between 7 and 8, so I'm going to click a 7.
So I'll pause right there. Now imagine again, if you're a student and that concept is presenting a struggle. Again, I can just take that and I can rewind it back and review it. If this is something I'm good to go on, I've covered it, I feel really confident, I can always fast forward in some cases. And we've got teachers that are using not just YouTube, but also a tool called Edpuzzle, which we purchased for our secondary schools, where they can embed questions, checking questions right into the videos. And so it's not just passively watching the videos, they'll actually come in and it'll pause the video automatically, and a question will pop up and have the kids check for understanding. So it's that same kind of structure that those of us that have been teachers in the past use day in and day out, the check for understanding idea. So probably shut the video again.
Mr. Kopp here again.
There we go. You'll also see that we've got opportunities for students and teachers to engage in online chats, online conversations. And this is all within Schoology. This is all behind our password protected, district purchased resource that the conversations are taking place. And so you can see this is from Betsy Reese, one of our middle school math teachers, where she's actually posing questions for the kids as just information starters. The question was, how can you use unit rates at the grocery store? How can you help your family save money? So not only is Betsy teaching online, but she's also engaging the kids in real world kind of situations around math. It's not just purely conceptual. And the kids are actually, do not spend a lot on groceries and other stuff. It's great. It's awesome, right? So good stuff. Professional learning. So we are very fortunate to have what I believe is one of the finest technology integrationists in the state of Minnesota. This is Katie Herbold. She was also a former science teacher at Apollo and North, and we were able to have her join our team about 5 years ago now, I believe. And she has been the instructional coach, leader, whatever you want to call that, with our teachers. She also supports our grades 6 through 12 in-person technology integration and innovation work as well. So what she did in June 20th and 21st, was she led a 2-day workshop with our Central Minnesota virtual teachers over at Quarry View, and she modeled the model. So she actually built the whole course within Schoology. The teachers were able to engage live, but also were able to engage asynchronously, so that when they were back in September, it wasn't like, what did we do again in June? I forgot. They could go back and they could relearn some of the structures and strategies that Katie walked them through. And so you see down here, session 1, logistics, session 2, course organization, how to do instructional videos, and then how to create playlists. On the right-hand side then is actually going through how to design assessments, authentic assessments in an online environment. So if you don't know Katie yet, that's a good person to get to know. High school courses. Right now, currently, we offer 50 online high school courses. On paper, it's 51, but we actually took 2 courses that are really similar, digital literacy and digital foundations, and we were able to combine those to one course and still stay under some of the enrollment thresholds. So we have 50, but 51 in Skyward. So broken down, you can see the courses here, and again, this is actually one of our courses by Clean Marquardt, who is one of our social studies teachers at Apollo, but also teaches world history here for Central Minnesota. So you can see some electives. And we are constantly exploring if we have the right classes and if we want to expand for next year. That's a conversation that's taking place right now. Breakdown or summary of our enrollments. And again, this, depending on the day, you might see a number here, 1 or 2 change, just like any school, especially our size. So this is a snapshot of the day that I took the data. It could be different tomorrow, but not by much. So we've got 164 students right now at the high school level alone that are taking 1 or more online courses. When Lori and I were talking last spring, we asked a question like, where do we think we're going to be? And I was like, boy, Lori, it's kind of hard. I mean, a few years ago, we could have been super huge, but now because there are a growing number of online programs, where districts aren't seeing this huge number of 200, 300, 400 the first year. So we thought, I don't know, maybe 100, 125, I think we kicked around. We were not expecting this number, and it's fantastic. I kind of joke, Duluth was the first program that Gary and I looked at back 11 years ago, and their first year they had 8 students. 8. They had more staff than students, 8. Now they have 1,000. Okay, right. So again, you take a look at the possibilities, and again, they were early in, and they kind of owned the Arrowhead area of the state, and so it's easier for them, but we're looking forward to growth. So anyway, we've got 48 full-time online students. We're seeing an average of about 9 courses, those 164, 9 trimester courses. So keep in mind, some classes are 1 try, some are 2. Geography, for example, is 2. Some are 3, a year-long course. So on average, 9 trimester courses. We've got 49 students that are taking 15 or more online trimester courses. 30 that are doing 9 to 14, and then 85 are doing 8 or less. So actually, a majority of our kids, or just about half, I guess I should say, are taking actually less than 8. So we still have a very strong in-person brick and mortar model with our kids, and our kids have the choice. Kind of break down by grade. You might ask, why do we have 2 8th grade students in the high school summary? Because we've got 2 students that accelerate in math, and they would anyway, and they would be traveling potentially to Tech or Apollo, but they're part of the online program now so that they can take that acceleration in the online environment. This is just some nitty-gritty parts, and this is a little bit confusing, so I wanted to highlight it so that there wasn't any, or was less confusion, less misconceptions. The state of Minnesota allows districts to really offer 3 choices. So state statute says that you cannot take more than 50% of your classes from an online provider without an agreement between the online provider and the brick and mortar school. But in our case, which a lot of schools do this, we're both. We're both the brick and mortar and the online provider. So our kids can technically be a full-time Tech high school student, a full-time Apollo high school student, and still take a full-time load. By definition, they're still considered supplemental learning, how the state defines it, but they are taking all their classes online. By state statute, a full comprehensive student is a student who is part of the online program themselves. So this year, we have 65 students that are from Apollo that fall into this category, 96 from Tech, and 3 that right now are strictly Central Minnesota Virtual Academy students. Very unique is we have more Tech students taking online classes, but we have Apollo students are taking more classes, Just kind of a unique thing. We're mystery of life, who knows? So that's our three options. Is students can take some classes online, others in person, which most of our kids are doing. Students can take all online classes through their in-person school, or the students can fully enroll in Central Minnesota Virtual Academy. Middle school, this is the courses that are offered in our middle school level, obviously a lot less. That's just traditionally how middle schools work. And so they have language arts, math, science, social, art, phy-ed, health, and music. And again, this is actually a still picture of one of our math teachers, Betsy, I mentioned before, how she integrates video into her lesson. She's been doing this now for a few years, and so it's just a perfect fit for Betsy. Our breakdown by grade is we've got 13 sixth graders, 13 seventh graders, and 12 eighth graders. That's 38. We did cap it this year at 40 because of logistics with staff and wanted to make sure we do it well. We've had a lot of interest, and I think we'll see some growth in this area. But it's better to go slow and do it well than to go fast and to not have it work out well. So we're using this year as our middle school test run with these 38 students. And the reason 40 is the magic number is the state does not allow you to have classes that exceed 40. And so you'll see that in our other enrollments is the online classes are at 40 or below by state statute. So now we're going to hear some kids' voices, which I know the board always loves that part best. So one of the questions I asked the kids at the beginning was, for the middle school kids, I asked them, what are 3 things you could fit in a bag that represent who you are? And they're using a resource called Flipgrid, or now it's called Flip actually. Technically they changed their name recently to Flip. It's a Minnesota-based company that now is purchased by Microsoft that's now global. And so I've got the student at the top who did a video, and I watched the volume because it's really loud. These 2 kids were like microphones right up to their face. It's pretty cool. And then the student below is the student I mentioned who is the high school student that was talking about, he went beyond not just talking his 5 things, but also why he's doing this, which I thought was a unique gift. I didn't ask them for that. So I'm gonna watch my volume here. Like I said, it gets a little loud.
3 things that represent me. 1, a water bottle. It's very healthy and is very relaxing for me. If I drink cold water in the summer, it's very helpful. Number 2, a PS4 controller. I play PS4 with my siblings sometimes if it's very hot out and I cannot go outside. 3, a soccer ball. I play soccer with my siblings and sometimes with me, by myself, and it's very fun to do. These 3 activities that I have just shown you are the 3 things that I do all the time for summer. And that's it. Goodbye.
Yeah, I just love it, the fact, I mean, there's kids, right? If they're online, they're in person, they're still our kids. So I just...
Hello, my name is Ishmael. I am 11th grader this year. One of the reasons, quickly by myself, that I chose to do online this year is because I'm doing PSEO, and I also have a part-time job. So I do the part-time job, and I also have some classes at SSU, which is why I chose to make it online, which would be a lot more flexible for my time. In terms of 5 things I would like to have, I would show in a bag of mine. One of them, the 5 things would be a notebook, a pencil, like as one, a notebook and pencil, a book, a basketball, and the last one would be a hammer. For the hammer, it describes me because I like to always put things together, try to work around some things. If things doesn't work out, I try to always find another way to do it. In terms of the notebook and pencil, I like to write and I like to draw some stuff. In terms for the book, I really like to read. I like to read some books or panels, as they say. Those are the things I like to do. And in terms of basketball, I really like to play basketball, and not just basketball. I like to play sports, soccer, and take care of my fitness. Those are my 5 things, and yeah.
Kind of defeats the myth of our online students are sedentary kids who are just in their basements all day long, right? I mean, this last student here, who is obviously very motivated, PSEO, part-time job, online student, he picked a pencil and paper, as an online student. And that just kind of goes back to this idea that our, pencil and paper are it's a technology. I mean, I kind of joke about that. A pencil is a piece of technology, and it doesn't plug in, but it's still technology, and that's where some of our students still reside. So it's pretty exciting. Taking a look at looking ahead as we explore the future for online learning here in St. Cloud and around. We've already pulled together that amazing group of counselors I mentioned before, and we sat in this space and we spent a 2-hour workshop. I think it was early last week. Calendars are blurring together these days. But school counselors from Tech, Apollo, North, South, and Kennedy, we all came together. We broke ourselves into teams, and we started to look at what are some of the gaps, because we're learning. I mean, and that's something that Lori encourages in me and in everyone that works with her, is that we are instructional, we are a learning organization, and we make mistakes, and that's okay, and we learn. And that's something that she embeds with this group, and I appreciate that. And so we took this time to say, okay, what are our gaps? What mistakes do we make? What areas do we need to improve upon? And we need to improve upon now, like what's the ones we're going to look at in the next month or two? And then what are the areas that we need to think about for next fall, for a year from now, so that we can plan for those? And the 3 areas we talked about are enrollment and registration process. We know we can improve that. We relied too much on spreadsheets and forms and more manual kind of processes. And so our amazing programming team that Donna Roper leads is already looking at ways that they can embed that process better into Skyward. Our student supports, we're looking at things like advisories and that connection, and that's when we're looking at already making improvements. Jason and Lori and I are meeting on that very soon to look at how we can connect and reach out to those kids even better than we already are. And we're doing well, but even better. And then finally, special education and multilingual structures. So taking a look at those pieces, how can we support those structures and those needs even better? And again, Mike Rivard leads an amazing team. Beth Watkins, another one to thank, has really helped guide us in special education and Graham Litterist with multilingual. And then, this is a phrase that you've heard me use a couple times when I've had an opportunity to visit with the board, it's a term I use a lot, is we are just at the tip of the iceberg right now. Again, we're a month in, and it's where we can go with this is really unknown. I mean, it could get really big. It could, we're planning for some growth, and we're excited for that opportunity. But if we stay at a couple hundred kids for a while, we're actually right in there with other districts that have been doing this for years, in that 200, 300, 400 range. And so we'll see how it goes, and just excited for what's to come. And at that point, I'll take questions or thoughts.
My only question, enrollment page, there was no list of how many students are enrolled in our program that live outside the boundaries of our district. And I'm
Sure.
wondering if there are any.
Yeah.
And if there is, how many there are.
Yeah, so here's the exciting story. One example, Al, is we had a student from Tech whose family had to move away to another community. And he felt so strongly that he wanted to graduate from St. Cloud area schools that his parents called this summer and said, can he actually come back, but virtually? And so we do have some students that reside outside of our district boundaries. As far as how many, I would say off the top of my head right now, that I can think of 2 that for sure literally live outside. The tricky part with that question, well, it's a good question. The tricky part is because our kids can open enroll to one of the high schools and then go online, it's a little bit tricky because they might not fall on my radar right away, if that makes sense. They can actually open enroll to say Tech and then go online, and then I find out about those students afterwards. So it's a little bit trickier. We're still working on that process of how to collect that, but I know that we've got one student that lives in Sartell that actually moved from the Twin Cities metro area up here, lives in Sartell, but joined our online school, and also our one student whose family moved to Monticello recently. That's off the top of my head right now.
I think that's what I was looking for is students who, like, do we have any from students who are Holdingford students that enrolled in CMVA instead, or Sartell students, Sauk Rapids
Sartell.
students, Rocori, Wilmer, I don't,
Rocori
wherever.
has their own online program, so we're probably, I don't recall us getting from Rocori off the top of my head. And again, they've got their own online school, so they'll probably draw most of their kids. We're not going to get a lot as we go to our south and our east because it's very dense with online programs, the Elk
Right.
River, the Big Lake area. So we did do some marketing in the Holding Ford, Albany, Little Falls area.
I anticipate the smaller towns going northwest.
Yeah, and the exciting part that the state is actually allowing, they're opening up opportunities for now, is for schools to actually, I don't want to say collaborate, but actually bring together formally programs. We're seeing Elk River and Rochester doing that right now, where they're reaching out to other districts and saying, okay, you're maybe too small or don't have enough of interest to build your own online program. Would you like to partner with us and have your students join our school district for maybe a class or two or full-time? You can keep your students as your students and they can take a class. That's something I think we're going to want to look at, especially with our region right here.
Do you know in Duluth, where you said they own the Arrowhead up there, do you know what percentage of their students come from outside the boundaries of their district?
Yeah, a lot. I don't know the exact percent, but I can tell you that when we first reached out to them to find out how their program worked, of their 1,000 kids, less than 10% are full-time, and they're spread throughout the entire part of the state. So was it Carlton? You go south down, was it 35? I think Carlton area and some of those areas by the state park there, and then going inward into the state, they kind of pull that whole area.
Do you know curriculum-wise, does the opportunity lie in being able to provide coursework that, say, a small district wouldn't be able to provide, but we can offer a class in something because we can just
Yes.
using
100%.
scale?
I get an example for you even. So one of our area schools, I believe, talked about not being able to offer, I believe it was American Sign Language. And that is something that we should look at in the future. My son is in that class right now at Tech, and I asked him, could this be an online class? He said, oh, yeah, I could think it'd be an online class, you bet. They're using Flipgrid, the same resource I just talked about, for their in-person class. And so I think those opportunities, currently what we're not doing first year, because we want to do, start slow to go fast, is we're not opening up our program for students to take like say from Albany or an Avon or a Holding Ford, take one class with us. It's right now it's a little bit of all or nothing, just so we get our bearings and set up straight. That might change that out of district enrollment. I did have a family just email me this, last week it was now, that they were looking for an algebra class for their child. And they were in the Outer Ring Metro and wondering if they could take math class with us. I'm like, not yet. We're going to get there, but right now this year it's open enroll just so we get ourselves set up. One of those future opportunities I spoke of, yeah. Thank you. Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. So I have one question, but I'll prompted another question for me. Talking about boundaries and talking about where people can enroll. What are the requirements for a student to enroll into the program? So do you ask anything about where they live? Like if I can be out of a state and enroll in the program here?
Fortunately, no. State of Minnesota requires that students reside in the state of Minnesota for state funding. They have to reside, or they cannot leave the state for greater than 15 days. And so a student can't enroll and then say I'm taking a month vacation or a 2-month vacation going someplace else. So you do have to reside in Minnesota. There are some states that are some online school programs that do charge tuition for families that do want to go out of state and take the in-state program, but that's something that we've explored yet.
Okay, and what about is any requirement for the I was asking for the ones that are outside our boundaries. Are any requirements for that? Do we compete with Duluth, for example?
We can compete with anyone, and there's even districts that will. We kind of joke amongst ourselves as we talk about some of the online folks that they'll put billboards in other people's towns for their online program. So it's very competitive. The challenge that I've heard from other larger districts is because the growth in the last 3 years of online programs was so striking that they're almost starting to compete now for each other's kids, because if a student's going to go online, in many cases they've already started to explore that, and so it's getting tougher and tougher. So we're starting to see some plateau of online enrollments throughout the state because there just is so many opportunities now. So very much within the state, a student can take our program if they want to open enroll currently this year from the Duluth area, from Moorhead, from Winona, from, doesn't matter, Rochester, wherever. Yeah.
My last question is, can you go back to that slide about where you had Apollo and Tech and that one?
This one right here, or this one right
Yeah,
here?
that one. No, the other one.
Oh, sorry, thank you, okay.
So, can you split it again? I don't get
Yeah.
those 65 students, why are they Apollo students and why the others are CMBA?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. We had to actually go to the Department of Ed on this one. Jeff Plowman is the rep with the Minnesota Department of Ed. He had to sit down and explain this to us. So the state of Minnesota distinguishes online kids with two categories, supplemental and comprehensive. Supplemental, we felt, we as of last January, we thought supplemental means I'm taking some classes online and some in person. Comprehensive means I'm taking all my classes online. And he said, you're close, and that's what every district thinks. But here's how I explained it, is in the state of Minnesota, a student can take a online class from another district. So again, if a student was taking from, let's say, Buffalo to St. Cloud, and they can only take 50% of their classes from another district online, okay? Unless there's an agreement between both districts, okay? So when you have your in-person and your online students from the same district, we are kind of making an agreement with ourselves and saying our kids can actually stay at Tech High School as Tech students, technically, and they can be Tech students, and they can be full-time online. So currently, we've got 65 of our students are Apollo students that are taking online classes of some kind, 1, 2, 3, up to 6 each trimester. We have 96 Tech students that are also in the same thing, maybe taking one class, maybe taking 6 each trimester. We have 3, and these are our students that open enrolled and were not tied to either Tech or Apollo as an option and wanted to just be an online student here in St. Cloud. And that's something we can always revisit. Do all of our students become Tech or Apollo students? Do all of our full-time students actually transition to Central Minnesota Virtual? Those are conversations that we're going to want to have this next year. But these 3 are some of the students that Al was actually asking about that are open enrolling to us from other places in most cases, at the high school level. It's confusing. It is. It took, like I said, it literally took a meeting with MDE for them to walk us through it and us to go, oh, we were wrong for the last month. Now we get it. But so in a month we can revisit and we'll see.
Okay, I'm gonna let it go then.
Okay. It's tricky. It's tricky. Yeah, I appreciate it. Good questions.
The money follows the students.
Mhm.
Are there enough students to support this program?
I'm going to defer that one to Amy for the money part. I want to make sure that I stay in my area of expertise. Expertise is a rough word, my area of knowledge. I will tell you that we are doing this program in a very fiscally responsible way. I call it, we're running the program through committee. So my role, I'll just use my role for example. I'm the Director of Instructional Technology, Director of Innovation, and I'm also the Program Director supporting the overall big picture of this program. We don't have like a separate person currently doing it right now. Our counselors are all existing counselors that are supporting our students. Our teachers are all existing teachers. We call them adjuncts for the most part. We are doing overages for 3 high school teachers and 4 middle school teachers to help support that. But again, not getting into the finance part because that's not my area, but we are bringing students in as well from outside the district. I will also say that I can tell you factually, we retained students that had considered open enrolling elsewhere because they said, now that you're doing this, we're going to do this instead. And I know in a couple cases, we got students back who had, one was an online program up in the Pequot area, I think it was, and then one is our student that moved out of town that said, we're coming back to St. Cloud now that you guys have this. So, Lori, were you going to?
I think the only thing that I would add to that was a great response, because I did talk with Amy about this, knowing she wouldn't be able to be here. As Ryan said, we're being really careful with staffing. So it was because this is a different way of learning, right? The class size maximum capacity set by the state is 40. So 40 students to 1 instructor, and that's much higher than our set class sizes in our middle schools and high schools. So in terms of the FTE, That is a very reasonable and definitely not a cost that we are incurring. And then the other thing, particularly for the students who are fully online, is transportation. And that is eventually, as this program potentially grows, that's where we will really see some significant cost savings.
And I know it's kind of an experimental, and we thought that maybe the first 2 or 3 years it would be a money loser. But I was wondering if we're at the point where we're doing break even or better. in the
Yes.
First year.
Yes.
Okay. How is this different from COVID distant learning?
Love that question. So those of us that have been looking at this for a while, and I mean this term respectfully, during COVID times, we don't really consider it to be truly online learning. That was almost like emergency pandemic learning. We had, I think Gary, I'm going to borrow copyright Gary Ganji, but he talks about we didn't invent a school in 30 days, we invented a school district because it got so big, so fast, and there was just so much going on that our teachers, the amazing, and I'm just in awe of what our teachers pulled off during that time to still educate and connect with our kids. The difference between this, Scott, is we've had time to really explore models. We've had time, we had 2 days of strictly just exploring instruction and what it can look like with our teachers in June, July. We've got this amazing person, like mentioned before with Katie, that is reaching out to these folks because they're all in person as well, that she can go visit them and sit down with them and sit and really work through the process. Versus that time, we were just doing our very, very best to keep our community safe and keep our kids safe and to educate our kids the very best of our ability. I can remember sitting at Apollo just trying to get devices out to kids and how to handle through buses repair processes. We were transporting devices on buses to get repairs back and forth. So it's a whole different, while it feels similar in some ways, it's very different in others. And we just had this time and being very intentional about the instruction and the way to connect.
I know that because of the fire at Apollo before COVID, we had sort of a head start on things. Did that help?
Everything helps. Every time you get a chance to engage in a different way of learning and to think differently, it always helps. I don't think there's never a bad opportunity for learning. Any situation you can learn from. I've learned that professionally and personally in my life, that every situation that comes at you is learning opportunity. And I think a fire, a pandemic, whatever it might be, is always an opportunity for growth. 100%, yeah.
I was impressed with this idea of 6 to 10 minute lessons. Is that how they do it in person too, or how'd you come up with
Every
this?
teacher's different. And we've got 1,000 teachers, K-12, pre-K-12, excuse me, that are supporting our kids. There are times when a teacher may do, let's say a science class may be strictly labs all day long, and then there's times when that same teacher may need to get a concept, and they may do more lecture, or more of a sit and get. It just depends, but it's with online, we know that there are competing interests for a student who's at home. That gaming station that's across the room is a competing interest, and so we give kids small chunks based on research, so that again they can go back and forth and control their own learning.
Okay. At one time, I think there was a Somali group that was doing online learning from Bloomington. How much are the outsiders cutting in, and how much are we able to get back?
That I don't. To be honest, I think there was the news story I think you're talking about. There was just a handful of kids in the community. I take our numbers at 205-ish, and I'm celebrating that. We're good. We're in good shape right now. We've got the part I love is, and being someone who lives in the community, whose family is part of the school district, I just love the fact that we're having this opportunity for our kids and support their learning however that they need.
Okay. Thank you. Good work.
It's a lot of people. Thank you.
Obviously, you don't have numbers per se, but outcomes, particularly when you talk to school districts like Duluth who've done it for a decade, what is the difference they see in outcomes, everything from standardized testing to graduation rates, differences between the typical student who does a virtual academy in terms of career aspirations and those sorts
Sure.
of things? Are there trends, and how do you respond to that? And what do you see that in Central Minnesota Virtual Academy?
I can't speak to the test scores, to be transparent. I don't have that information. I can tell you though, if I continue to pick on Duluth for a minute, the interesting thing that's unique about Duluth's program is it's run in tandem with their alternative learning program. So they actually blend the two together, where you've got students who the traditional day-to-day structure doesn't work very well for them. You know, your ALC students who are looking for that alternative opportunity, and they recognize that there was an opportunity to also pair a different way of teaching with online. And so I have to believe that they're seeing greater graduation rates. It'll be interesting to see, just because this huge surge in online learning really has been the last couple years, especially post-COVID kind of transition of the last 2 or 3. So I think that data is maybe still out there to be seen. But I think anytime we can have students who can engage in learning and have opportunity to pass classes and feel successful, is going to just naturally increase our graduation rates. So that's one of those exciting things I'm hoping to be able to see in the next couple of years. You bet.
During COVID, we had the online learning, and there was a tremendous drop in test scores. I think like 80% of our kids did worse and 20% did better. How about it now? How are our test scores comparing now?
Only been a month in, so we'll see. The part that's exciting is if we say 80-20, if that's a number that's in fact correct, is we've got 200 of our kids that are online right now. What I'm seeing is, for some of the students that I've got a chance to visit with via Google Meet and meet their families, is this opportunity. These are the kids in some cases who thrived in that particular setting. That's why they wanted it. That's why Dr. Putnam got phone calls and emails like, when is this online school opening? With our kids, this was great. We've got some students in the program right now that, as a former middle school teacher here in St. Cloud at South, it warms my heart to think that these middle schoolers that are struggling with the day-to-day, it's called operations of school, now have a place, right? They have a place that's theirs, that they can feel comfortable, that they can feel safe, that they can feel heard, and they have their place now. So it's exciting.
So a lot of the kids we have now are part of that 20% that thrived during COVID.
I can't scientifically say that, but my gut says yes. Because they're the ones that were knocking on the door asking, when are you opening up?
Thank you.
You bet.
I got lost in why the student could take algebra. Was that because we don't have an algebra class?
Oh, no, we have algebra class. Actually, it's a very popular class. It's around 38 to 40 students. At this point, we're not doing a supplemental program that has a student from out of district that can come in and take like 1 or 2 classes. We'll get there, I think, someday. But this first year, we wanted to keep it as simple as we could to be successful. And so our students are all St. Cloud area students. If they're coming in to take a class with us, they're open enrolling as a student.
So those 3 over there are full-time?
Full-time.
Got it.
Enrolled
Okay.
students. Yep. I got to know the Welcome Center very well over the summertime.
And sorry if we already said this, but where will those 3 graduate from?
Technically, we can actually offer a diploma through Central Minnesota Virtual Academy. It's a separate entity. Yeah, I know, right? It's pretty cool. We're actually diploma offering opportunity. Again, Donna's team has already programmed transcripts and everything that will actually be Central Minnesota Virtual Academy. But our students can also elect to graduate from Tech or Apollo. I'm working with counselors on how that works. I'm learning that part. And so, but yeah, these 3 kids could actually be our first Central Minnesota Virtual graduates. Yeah, it's very cool. Yep, thank you.
Okay, then we're moving on to schools update, presented by Nikki Hansen, Assistant Superintendent of Pre-K through 5 Education, Dr. Jason Harris, Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education, and Dr. Mike Rivard, Assistant Superintendent of E through 12 Education Services.
All right, good evening, Chair Haas, Superintendent Putnam, and board members. Tonight for our elementary update, we get to highlight Clearview Elementary. When asked about strengths, Principal Boucher had a lot of pride in Clearview's strong sense of community and the way that the community rallies around their students. She also noted their collective efficacy around high expectations. Current highlights for Clearview include their fall picnic, where families gathered and celebrated the start of the school year, having Tech Tiger athletes come and visit every classroom, and their 5th grade service learning project, where 5th graders had the opportunity to spruce up their Veterans Plaza at Clearview.
Good evening, Chair Haas, Superintendent Putnam, school board members. We're highlighted South Junior High School. They focused in on positive climate and culture. And one of the things, like you all know, thank you all for coming out the last 2 weeks around homecoming activities. It was a great events across our system. South celebrated. They had a competition with their volleyball team and their staff. Their students actually won, so that's a big thing for bragging rights at South. You see they had a pie in the face contest, and it was just a great way to build community and celebrating homecoming across our system and specifically on the South Side. South also talked about specifically instruction that produces positive outcomes. And if you remember back in the days, if you ever got a chance to do a hands-on experience with mealworms, the students really got a chance to sit and have some hands-on mealworms, work through scientific methods and inferences. And it was a great way. You see them smiling. I see some folks here in the room kind of squirm a little bit around worms, but the students, you see them smiling. They had a great time around that. One of the things that we also highlighted, we still are working with Minnesota High School League around the partnership. Tech and Apollo student activities leadership teams both collaborated in the partnership at Sauk Rapids a couple of weeks ago on continuing the conversation to create inclusivity, safe spaces for our students in the environments. And we got good feedback. Our students had a good time. They talked to other students across the state and continuing our work with creating safe space and healthy environments for our students within Minnesota High School League.
Good evening, Chair Haas, Superintendent Putnam, and members of the board. This evening, it's my pleasure to talk about our Community Options 2 program. This is a transitional program for us in the St. Cloud Area School District for kids between the ages of 18 and 22. These are for our children who have minor disabilities, and this has been in existence for approximately 20 years. This program is a partnership between us and the St. Cloud, or between us and the St. Cloud State, and with their education department. We are housed at Stearns residence facility on the first floor. For our students, they recognize some of the positive outcomes as half of their day being focusing on transitional and individual goal areas. They work on social skills, they work on communication development and independent living skills. But the second half of their day is probably what they see as the highlight for them, is that they are out in the community working on their vocational experiences, gaining employment opportunities. They see this as being a primary part of their goals as they move on from age 22 and into adulthood. We're very proud of this program. So thank you. If there's any questions, we'd be glad to try and answer them.
Any questions at all? Scott?
How's our enrollment situation down there?
So we have classrooms that are full, not full in enrollment numbers, but are thriving. And so we are continuing to look at how we can help to build programming at Clearview. We see our Spanish immersion classrooms all sitting in 20 plus. And we see our English numbers a little bit lower in our younger grades. And that is something that we are looking at and working closely with Principal Boucher with.
Al?
I have a question not related to this, but going back to Ryan's presentation. I was wondering how many students, full-time CMVA students, participate in activities also within our district. Are there any? And I don't know if you guys know the answer to that or not, so I understand if you don't.
Get back to us. That's a really curious question.
Just from secondary, I don't know, but we would find out how many students are involved in it. I'll get back to you.
Okay, thanks. Last up, we have proposed new board policy 425, first reading, staff development and mentoring, presented by Dr. Mike Rivard, Assistant Superintendent of E12 Education Services.
Good evening again, Chair Haas, Superintendent Putnam, members of the board. This evening, I'm presenting a new policy for a first reading, Board Policy 425. This is coming out of MSBA's model policy, and I'll get to why we're adding this policy in a moment, but I will go through some of the edits that we went through with the Board Development Committee, and also just introduce the idea behind this board policy. So our purpose for this policy is establishing a staff development structure to carry out planning and reporting on staff development. We've been doing professional development, obviously, for many, many years, and have had a professional development committee for many, many years. It hasn't been living in a policy, though. As you go through this policy, what it goes through in section 2 is what the establishment of this policy will look like, and what the staff development committee will look like. And how it feeds down into our staff development committees at each of the buildings. Now, I'm going to move through a little quickly, but if there's any questions as we go through, I'd be glad to take them. One of the roles of this is that we did look at the MSBA policy, and instead of having the school board be directly responsible for this, we did bring to the board development a recommendation to have the superintendent or designee be responsible for the site professional development teams and the oversight over those. Team members would be part of that team for approximately 2 years, and those would be done through administrative selection for who would be part of the teams at the site level. The duties of the advisory staff development, or excuse me, that should be professional staff development committee, which is the major changes that we had to make. Goes through a number of them. They are all about how we're developing our staff, looking at ways of evaluating when we are doing those things, how they relate directly to our relicensure requirements that come out of PELSB, and that the vast majority of them are directly related to curriculum development and student achievement and academic success. I'm going to move down through this and get to the section that brought this back into the fold, and that was on this. As you reviewed this policy, part of this was that there was information related to the procedures of how we use staff development funds. And at the point where it comes out of MSBA's model policy, there's a recommendation that the staff development, professional staff development committee have oversight over those funds and those dollars. We've never done that before, so we did subtract that and edit that out of the policy and keep that within the administrative team. Oh, absolutely. Go ahead, Monica.
I'm confused. We do not have this policy currently, right?
We do not. This is a new policy for us.
And what you're crossing out is what it was in the model policy? Is that what you're saying?
This was in the MSBA model policy, that is correct. As we presented it to board development, there was agreement at board development not continue to have this be language in the St. Cloud School District board policy.
But that has never been a language in the St. Cloud district.
That's correct.
Okay.
Kind of strange, but it is a new policy. But to be transparent, I wanted to present it as the MSBA had presented it, and noting that we are crossing off a great deal. At the second read, I certainly can pull all of that off.
Is there a statute regarding professional development?
The only part that's statutory is that we have to set aside 2% as being related to money that's set aside for professional development. How that's allocated and how we decide how that money is spent and who's making those decisions is not part of the statute.
I think there was a statute regarding Indian professional development for teaching Native American. Is that part of this?
It is the percentage of how much we have to do, but who makes the decision is what the part that's crossed out is about. We're crossing out the idea that this particular committee would be making the decisions about how much money would be spent for each section of our professional development. We would still maintain that as being an administrative decision.
So it's procedural.
Correct. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. The reason why this policy is coming forward is related to the statute that did change over this past legislative session, in that we are now providing a minimum of 8 hours of professional development to our new paraprofessionals who are instructional paraprofessionals. This, again, is new for us, and this had to live somewhere. MSBA made the decision to have it live in Board Policy 425, which is why Board Policy 425 is in front of us right now.
So I would like to go to the first part of the policy where you talk about purpose. And I like to change the first paragraph because I was dizzy reading about professional development teams, put professional development for developing and development and the development plan for develop the development.
The word development was in there frequently, I noticed too.
So I like to offer the So the superintendent or designee will establish a professional staff development committee, period. The function of this committee will be to create a staff development plan and assist site professional development teams in creating a site plan consistent with the goals of the district staff development plan, period. And then you can say it, or this committee will also be charged with evaluating staff development efforts at the site level.
So Monica, I did take that feedback and I've included it up here on the side for the entire board's review, if that would be something we'd want to consider.
Perfect, thank you. It may be not, I'm reviewing my review, but yeah.
Question on, since this lives in board policy, and we've pretty much removed the school board completely from the policy and brought it down to superintendent or designee, I'm wondering if in that very first, shouldn't start out that the school board will ensure that the superintendent or designee will establish, just to tie it back to a board policy from a, because otherwise it really becomes a administrative procedure.
Yeah.
School board will enable the superintendent to.
What is the sense of having, why did MSBA set board?
So why do they specifically have the school board noted as being the first part of the policy, or why did this policy come back to be in front of us right now?
No, why do they have board there?
I can't speak to that for sure, why they have that versus the superintendent or designee. I think by having it be the superintendent or designee, as we discussed it during board development, it brings it back to the oversight of making sure the people who are going to be part of these teams, it brings them back to being appointed by administration versus having that live in the school board. Because this is not, and I think the piece that I probably mentioned in my email, this is not the district advisory committee. This is the professional development committee. It is a committee that's probably lived in our district for better than 20 years, or at least in my experience. It's a team that brings together our recommendations every year of the professional development we're doing. It's always been teachers and administrators that have been involved in it. So it's bringing a policy that's been going on to the board.
Sure. I think that Al makes a good point.
Sure.
I think, if we say that we're going to enable and ensure and all other E words,
Oh, sorry.
Dr. Putnam too.
I will take ensure out.
I do like Dr. Putnam when you, during your, did you do it during your superintendent's report one time where you talked about we have 70 different offerings, for this thing coming up? So maybe that's a way that, because I don't want to say that we are going to enable or ensure anything unless we actually have a process to do that. So if we could just hear about it on the regular, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think at the very end of this, we took designee off, right, Mike? We didn't get down to it, but at the very end, it was something about reporting back
Yes,
to the superintendent and/or designee, and we took that off, just made it superintendent, because the superintendent should be, you can hand it off to a designee, and all of a sudden it's a truly administrative procedure, and you might not even hear about it. Just like, I don't think that the legislature is intending for school boards to sit down and be actively involved in determining staff development. And this is a really administrative written policy. It's kind of a weird one to put in, but somehow it has to be, the school board has to ensure that it happens. The superintendent needs to ensure that it happens in a district our size, and therefore the designee, you can still hand it off. So it has to allow all of that. But I suppose I wasn't. Yeah, you have to allow all of that, but it isn't something that you have to do. But you should be aware of it. And that's where, at the end, I thought,
We did make that
took
change. Yeah.
designee out of there.
We did make that
Said
change.
that the report was back to the superintendent.
What is what the legislation wants to ensure that happens? That we have a committee that is a committee and not not one person in the administration? So what is exactly what they want to assure the legislation?
Can I make a comment on that? Because I think I might know. There's a lot of really small school districts, and they're run by a superintendent, and they don't have all of the staff that we have. And I can see situations where a superintendent would say, this is our staff development this year. And teachers would want to have a say in what that staff development would be. So this is ensuring that in all school districts, there would be a committee formed. And it's not just a one man or one woman show.
And that's how it has occurred in St. Cloud for a number of years.
So, but this committee has, I also saw that had parents and other people.
And I think that is going to be our district advisory committee. And our district advisory committee will also be giving us feedback on our professional development. So it's a different level or a different type of committee. But our professional development committee was going to stay within the administrative and teacher group. And of course, our teacher group is a pretty wide group of many different levels of teachers, content areas, special education, EL, so that we know that we have a wide breadth of professional development that's available. Our mental health development, all those things that have been occurring, has been occurring because of such a broad committee that's part of putting that together.
Then I'm looking for a motion to adjourn tonight's work session. Do
I move.
I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Monica, a second by Al. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, have a good night. It is 9 PM. Thanks for watching. We'll be back Wednesday, October 18th.
Give us a gossip, please.
You took notes?